This is Jamie Drummond for Good Food Revolution. I'm very, very happy this evening because I'm getting to have a virtual meetup with my old friend, Mr. Ruud Maasdam from Staete Landt Winery, Marlborough. It's been about 6 years, I believe.
I think it's even 7.5, Jamie. Good evening.
Good Lord, good Lord. How are you, Ruud, and what's been going on in your world?
Well, but it's morning here, of course, in the lovely southern hemisphere. It's November, so we have a pre-summer here. Mostly the pre-summers in New Zealand, midsummer and around Christmas, very very wet. So the vineyards are looking great. New Zealand, as you know, is doing well. We'll address COVID in a minute, but New Zealand is doing well. We can move around. Yeah, things in general, very, very good, actually.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I think we'll get to the crux of the question, which is how has the pandemic impacted you at Staete Landt, Marlborough as a region, and New Zealand as a country?
You still say, I just have to make a note with a smile on my face. You still say the Germanic way, right? State.
All right, right. Sorry. I
thought you did it by
yes, yeah.
on purpose. It's Staete Landt with the Staete Landt and Mapmaker brands.
Yes.
Well, in a general perspective, New Zealand is of course held up as an example of how COVID should be managed.
Yeah.
If that was the crux of it, start there first. And as a Pacific island, deep hidden away in the South Pacific, it is a little bit easier, I have to admit, to fend at your borders, fend off the virus.
Yep.
Than it is for you guys or anybody in Europe. Let's be fair. So yes, New Zealand is an exceptionally good at fending off. I think we have 25 people that died. Which is on a population of 5 million. Put that in a percentage, it's ridiculously low, and it has enabled us. We had a minor blip in Auckland, our main city. Out of 5 million people, 3 million live in Auckland. A major second blip where they had to put a similar soft lockdown on Auckland 2-3 months ago, but that's being controlled again. So we live here, bar for international travel as before. In the wine business we'll start about generic wine business trends, but my company, the Staete Landt wine company, in which I make the Staete Landt Mapmaker brands, has not been that lucky. We got cancellations in late 2019, early 2020. We got a lot of cancellations which I couldn't explain at the time. So my Chinese stopped ordering, my cruise liners stopped ordering, my January orders for restocking for Valentine's, etc., and spring from restaurant businesses in Europe stopped ordering. So that little flu we talked about at the time, we all laughed a bit about it, impacted my business. And if you would run a boutique wine business and you this all up became 30-40% of my turnover, suddenly fades away, and you're in a tight cash flow plan, I had to take emergency steps. So to cut a long story short, the Staete Landt Wine Company is now a business unit. I had to merge with a larger retail-focused company called Toy Toy Wines, and I run. So financially, we're safe, which is all the importers and customers and restaurants find fantastic to hear. The wines, I'm still making the wines, I'm still having the same fruit, etc. But on the finance side, on the back of me, there is a bigger company. It's not, I'd like to, after 25 years doing this, I would have loved it to go differently, but COVID has affected many people, and I should be glad that I am doing what I love, and I can do it the way I want to do it.
I guess it does. I mean, if you're looking at the silver linings here, it must be a bit of a load off those financial worries.
Yeah. I mean, if you live like I lived, and you spend all your money on growing the grapes, etc., and then You know, and that money comes from the wine you sell, and then you make all the expenses at harvest time and processing, and have to pay all the bills to the vineyard people and to the winery. To have that burden, not that the burden is now that somebody's nagging in my ear, said, "Hey, Ruud, have you thought about these costs and these costs?" That's fine. It is a load off. It is a load off, indeed. Yeah.
And did the lockdown impact harvest at all?
That's a funny one, because I made March in the Southern Hemisphere, March, April is harvest time. And guess what? I was actually on a plane from Europe in the days before, because there is always work in late Feb and early March. I was on the first bloody flight that the New Zealand government put all sorts of people on the airport in with high-vis vests, and we stepped off the plane and said, what the hell is going on? And because they had announced whilst I was in the air that anybody that came from such flights had to go in private lockdown, private isolation. Yeah, so I had I had to, luckily, New Zealand clarified a lot of food processing industries as essential workers.
Right.
Which meant that by government ruling, we could, with masks on, protective vests, etc. It's very hard to taste wines with a mask on, I can tell you. But so we had to go into wineries and announce our visits, huge protocols to get into the winery and then walk at a distance, etc. But I think we got through fantastically well. I could talk more about it, but I'll let you. There's more to say about that. But I'll let you ask. Otherwise, I go on too long, possibly.
I'm not. No, not at all. It's fascinating. Do you rely upon migrant labor for your harvesting at all?
That's exactly an interesting point. So a lot of handpick. Yes, we do. They are mostly Pacific Islanders from Vanuatu and Fiji and Tonga.
Okay.
And yes, they were. A lot of them were already in the country.
Okay.
Because they go start picking apples and apricots, etc., and then move on to grapes. So luckily they were already in the country. But there were not enough of them, not a limited amount. So you had to be in very, very good stead to get your hand-picked fruit done.
Right.
That was one thing. The processing at the wineries had to be optimized. If you talk import labor, wineries pull in labor, but that's more educated university staff from Germany, or German winemakers, American winemakers, Canadian winemakers, etc., to help out during. They were let in the country as well. And most of them were already in the mid-March.
Okay, good.
They were put into in most smarter wineries. They were put into camper vans on the winery property. So
yes, I heard about this.
Yep, they didn't leave the winery for 2-3 months. So me coming in and other winemakers coming into these wineries, of course, we took every measure not to how do you call this? If I had the vaccine, get the vaccine into the winery, because I would stuff all other wines as well, and all other people. So it was huge protocols, but yeah, we got through it that way by taking. A lot of people have done a huge amount of work and working in isolation 24/7 for a long, long time to make the wine harvest a success.
You mentioned your financial worries with all of these cancelled orders and the like. Has the pandemic been very hard on the boutique wineries throughout New Zealand?
Yes. I think yes, and I think the full damage of that is not being seen yet. We're sort of lucky that because New Zealand, if you want to, New Zealanders can't return to New Zealand at the moment, or only in a piecemeal, because you will be. I've seen news on Fox that we got concentration camps and something that's ridiculous. We have hotel rooms, but they are I think only 6,000 rooms or something, etc. And then you have to stay there for 2. So it's a limited trickle of people in there. So we're lucky that people beyond the borders can then travel in the country freely and be a domestic tourist and enjoy domestic restaurants and go visit domestic cellar doors. But New Zealanders probably don't want to spend whatever on Central Tag or Pinot Noirs, $80 a bottle all day. Less so than an Australian and Chinese and American and Canadian tourists do. So, or on expensive Pinot that I make, etc. So, and then of course we're exporting. The boutique people from New Zealand are mainly exporting to restaurants in the UK, in the Netherlands, and anywhere. So that's been hit hard, of course. So that's obviously part why I have been struggling, etc. And lots of my importers had to change, as also my importer in Ontario, Lifford Wines, has changed from selling to restaurants more to selling to private clients. And there's two trends that you'll find way more expensive wines slightly discounted available in retail, if in let's call it the free markets, the non-monopoly markets of the world, like in America or something. Retail has been booming, and private and e-business has been booming, of course, and that's compensating, but not to the degree that boutique people can say, "Oh, we're not hurt." So if the longer this takes, I wonder what's going to happen to a lot of my friends. My boutique winemaking friends all through New Zealand, and actually all through the world, really, because you have boutiques in Canada. I wonder how they're doing, So.
Well, my main worry right now is actually for the hospitality industry, it has to be said, because I mean, your wines, they used to find themselves onto, well, for lack of a better term, fine dining, white tablecloth restaurants. And with those basically being shuttered for, well, I mean, who knows how long they're going to be shuttered for, to be quite honest. And also the regulations that various governments are putting in place regarding social distancing within restaurants and spaces between tables and the like. I really just don't know how so many of them are going to survive. There have been so many casualties already in Toronto with regards to restaurants shuttering and just never reopening. It really frightens me. Have you heard any anecdotes regarding restaurants and the like?
Well, we have. I mean, in New Zealand ourselves, we've gone through the motions of. Because I'm not 100% sure about the situation in Ontario, but we've gone through the motions of being full lockdown, everything is shut, then opening, and the social distancing, and then you can't order. The waiter is not allowed to come to your table, so you have to go at the door with have a mask on, and then and now everything is free again. Yeah, there is a mass. Same as boutique wineries. If you were surviving on cash flow and you needed cash flow this month to pay next month, God, that's true for restaurants more than anything, any other business. If as we all know. So yeah, there's mass close downs of restaurants in New Zealand as well. But again, I think New Zealand has the honor and the privilege of being able to survive a little bit better on their domestic tourism, which is happening. I wouldn't want to be in Toronto right now and owning a restaurant and relying on cash flow. No, it'd be terrible. Or Amsterdam for the matter, or Berlin, or London, all these countries France, everywhere. It's terrible. And I don't know where this is going to go if this lasts another year.
Yeah. That's the worrying thing. We just don't know. We don't know what lies in the coming months, for sure.
We've had a wave, Jamie, we've had a wave here when we opened out of lockdown, and maybe you've had it similarly there because you've gone through waves as well. I think is that people, when we were allowed to go, we went en masse. We went crazy, and to support your restaurant in your own neighborhood, etc. But how long can you support your local restaurants? You know, like, you can do that for a week or two, but then you go back to your normal drill, right? So, and that's not enough for most restaurants to survive.
Unfortunately. I'm always trying to look at the kind of, as we go down these dark alleys talking about these things, I like to kind of look at you know, the kind of positive aspects of this pandemic. One thing I will ask you is, how is your harvest? Like, how is it looking right now?
Well, kind of a positive thing of one thing was of the harvest that we had in lockdown is that the winery had to change the way it took in fruit. And why this is relevant is I am one of the winemakers are quite pedantic and saying, well, okay, on Tuesday next week, I want you to pick those 10 rows. And then we process that. And then if you want to do other stuff, that's fine. And on Friday, I want you to come back and pick these 10 rows, and the machine can go and do the Pinot Noir in the back, and etc. And these guys with all their people in caravans, they pulled their hairs out. They couldn't work that. So the method changed, that they said, we're going to have a harvester machine or a crew that drives down that way. You're on that route. So on Tuesday at 2 p.m., we have a slot for you. And if you don't want to take it, you have to wait a week. Now, and why winemakers are fussy about these times is that we look at the forecast, we look at the ripeness of the fruit, etc. So, but COVID took a lot of those decisions out of our hands. And a lot of buddies of mine and myself, we had to say, oh, crikey, it's coming in 10. I don't think it's fully, but I better take that slot because God knows what the weather is going to be after.
Yeah.
And guess what? 2020, Sauvignon Blanc, and particularly Sauvignon Blanc and Pinot Noir wise, is now famed as one of the top vintages ever, because vineyard owners had whole blocks harvested that they'd never done before, and tasted it. Oh my God, this is fantastic! Oh, wow! Why didn't I ever think of this? So yeah, there's seriously the 2020 harvest that we had, and the wines in tank and the wines being bottled now, are basically, and this sounds bad, but basically sold out. Everything is allocated, and this is a wild new world. Or to say this in COVID, wines are allocated. There is no bulk wine for sale from New Zealand at today. If you go on any website, I have done this yesterday. The 4 big websites where you could buy as a winemaker, if I would want to be in that market and I want to buy some bulk to supplement my supply, there is literally 2,300 liters when there's normally million. Yes, 2,300 liters at $6.15 a liter. That's sort of double the normal price. So a successful harvest. The vineyards are looking great again. I think, you know, if Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc is 85% of the export products of New Zealand, I'm not saying the 2% that we get from Central Otago is unimportant. I'm not saying that the Marlborough Pinot Noir at 5% is important, but 85% of what we do is Sauvignon Blanc. I think we're coming to a stage that we're fully planted. This is a thing that has not been discussed for 25 years because people were constantly saying, well, we can plan more. We're coming to the stage that we only can grow the production by having the last little plots of land fill in plantings. Yeah. So Jamie, I think we're not growing the production that quick anymore. That's a bit beside your question. So I think we'll have excellent harvests from now on, because the only place that Marlborough can go is to increase quality and diversity. Yeah. And basically increase value so I'm taking your question a bit in another direction. I think everything is great. Everything was great by a bit of a surprise. And we have to take that 2020 surprise success into the next years.
Now, are you saying that you're not going to be as pedantic in the future?
I predict that we might be more pedantic.
Right. Okay.
I think the future of the wines of New Zealand is in wines of Marlborough, wines of New Zealand is in increased value. We have to all gradually, seriously look at the bottom end of the market. Is how sustainable is it long term if production is limited?
Yeah.
And the production is big. I mean, don't get me wrong, the production is big in Marlborough, but it's finite. And what you can see is, you know, maybe you don't, that I have been in the board of twice of every 4 years we organize the sort of a World Sauvignon Blanc conference in Marlborough now. And what we have been stressing there is the different climate regions in Marlborough and New Zealand, the different terroirs, the different wine styles. You know, you can go from sweet wine to sparkling, to barrel fermented, to skin fermented, etc. And I think that is going to be the feature. The future is to create more value for people, to get people to understand more what they're drinking, and be a bit more Burgundian about our Sauvignon Blancs. They sound contradictory, but you know, sub-appellations, sub-treatments.
Oh, I understand. Speaking of Sauvignon Blanc, I think one of my most memorable tastings ever was at your home around 10 years ago, when you opened up about 30 bottles of Sauvignon Blanc blind, including some ringers. And that was a real education. And then I think I had a bounce on your trampoline with your kids.
Yeah, it's true. I surprised myself. Yeah, true. And a swim in the river. Yeah, we sit. I mean, when is that going to happen again, Jamie?
Oh, I know. I mean,
when do they have 30 people or 20 people from like all over Canada and the US, and a couple of Duchess with her as well, I think. When is that going to happen again? But it's interesting times. And I mean, imagine that you are a new label now and you want to come on to the market. Holy moly, it has to be totally done by this medium and Instagram and God, what have you not. It's a changed world. Talking to retailers are at the moment not so very keen to get new brands on board, because they don't know, you know, if they stock it, is it going to be sold, and there's no other ways. It's the whole wine world. But you read more generic wine business material than I, of course. But the whole wine world is going topsy-turvy, obviously. Yeah.
Well, it seems that it's in Ontario, from my observations and anecdotes that I've had from importers and the like. The consumer team seems to be sticking with brands that are already established. So, I mean, Staete Landt is well known in Ontario now, so I'm imagining that your sales are quite healthy in Ontario.
The sales are healthy in Ontario because the brand has been in market for 20 years.
Yeah.
So the people that would take it in restaurants have been asking, how can I get it? How can I get it? And gradually, it's more and more. Lifford, our agent in Ontario, has the ability to have their own fleet of trucks. They have the ability to deliver to the clients' homes, as they would have to restaurants. Now they can drive to homes as well. So my map maker and Staete Landt wines have actually only probably dipped 10, 15, 20%. Because, and that's unique in the Lifford portfolio as well, because again, they have of course fantastic Italian brands that have the same success, but there have also been some newer brands that probably haven't got the same success in the private consumer world. So yeah, no, I'm a lucky bastard in that context.
Well, you have some wines coming up for release in the new year, I believe. So I think what we should do in the future is do a little virtual tasting with you and go through them.
I've done that. I've done the new trend, and I'm getting used to it, is I've done two now, not enough, of course, for some, but webinars where I just did one in the Netherlands, well, here, of course, but in the Netherlands, where people, to 100 people, they sent 100 milliliter flasks in boxes.
Wow.
Yeah, in boxes of 3, 4, and then apparently they did. They were sitting in their homes or kitchens or whatever, dinner tables with 2 or 3 people, splashing it out, and I had the full bottles here, And then we talked about the wine, and there's a moderator filtering questions.
Nice.
That's a way to do tastings with on a large scale. Yeah, interesting times. I don't mind those, but yes.
Well, I'd love it'd be almost like having a drink with you. So let's try and plan that for the future.
Yeah,
that would be great.
Yes,
Ruud Maasdam, thank you so much for joining us today at Good Food Revolution. Really appreciate your time, and thank you for joining us so early in your morning.
Thank you, Jamie.
Bye for now. Stay safe.
Yep.